everybody has a different area that maybe they're struggling with more than others, whether it's your health or your finances or your relationships or just not feeling excited about life. So you kind of have to go with what area you want to work on.
Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident.
Good day, and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Lynn Carey. Dr. Lynn Carey earned a doctorate in chiropractic and bachelor's degree in nutrition from Life University. She owned a practice in Willingham, Delaware for 18 years and has traveled to Brazil and India. Lynn loves empowering others to create their desired life of health, wealth, and perfect self-expression. Today, she lives in Miami Beach, where she stays busy pursuing her entrepreneurial dreams and homeschooling her teenage son. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Lynn. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Thank you so much, Dwight, for having me. It's an honor to be here.
It's an honor for me to have you. This is going to be a fantastic conversation. So one of the things that I focus on, my listeners that are loyal listeners that listen all the time understand, I focus on the origin. And the reason I always bring it up is to ensure that anybody new listening understands that the first part of the show is going to be focused on your earliest recollections from little Lynn to where you are today, because it's important for us to know, like, and trust you, and how it's hard for people to connect to somebody's story or their responses of the conversation without knowing that you literally are a person that's had trials and tribulations. And maybe you haven't, maybe everything's been rosy in your life. And I have people like that, but there's going to be listeners that are going to go, wow, I had that too. I don't have to hide it anymore. I can share the fact and not feel guilty that I've had a great childhood. So that's okay too. So if you do me a favor, Lynn, and tell me your origin story and what key things from your childhood to adulthood that led you to where you're at currently.
So my first remembrance of my childhood is that I just think right away, I thought there has to be more to life than this. I just felt a depression. And it's not to say that I didn't feel loved or secure with my parents, but they were just, it was struggle. Life was a struggle. Everything was, just getting by and working all the time. I didn't see happiness, and I hated school, even though I took it very seriously. I studied hard. I got A's. I was kind of a perfectionist, but I hated it. Every day was getting up and going was a dread. And I still can feel that. Like, yeah, it's still something I feel when if I have to get up early for something. I think it comes from that angst of having to go to school. And then my father, and I don't know if to tell this before or after, but I'll tell you my father's story. My father was an entrepreneur at heart. I really believe, I wish I could, he died when I was 12 years old. I wish we could have a conversation now. I think we'd have a lot in common. And I think he wanted more for his life, but he failed many times. And I also believe a big part of that was he did not have the right emotional support to really be an entrepreneur. From my mom to his parents, I don't think they were entrepreneurial type people. So he didn't have that, like, someone to go to, my mom was like, oh, you got to get a job, like, just get any job. And so when he lost all his businesses, he started working at a job that was a night shift at night. And I was 6 years old. And I just remember his energy was gone. It was like he was sick all the time, but his energy, he was very low energy. I remember that. And then he ended up getting cancer and passing away. And from my perspective now, I really believe it was a broken heart. You know, he didn't live his dreams, and he was in that rat race that was killing him. And the cancer was just the final outcome. And he died when I was 12. And I really was, I guess I faced death early on, which to me was a blessing because I wanted to know why we were here. And I was kind of angry that he left me here because I felt like I was raised Catholic. So I was told about heaven. It was this utopia. And I'm thinking he went to the right place. We're stuck in hell here. I really believe that. But I felt this torn perspective. I had one parent in heaven, one parent here. And eventually, a couple years later, at 14, I was diagnosed with scoliosis, which is the curvature of the spine. And mine was in an S shape. So your spine is pulled in two directions. And one of the emotional components for that is that you feel like you're pulled in two directions in life. So my inner self was saying there has to be more to life, but my mother was telling me something else, and society was telling me something else. And my dad went, and I thought, I don't know what, I felt pulled in two directions. And I ended up having the spinal surgery where they put the Harrington rods in your spine when I was 15 because they just told me I just did whatever the medical world told me at the time. That was all I knew. That's all we did. And they told me I was a good candidate for it, so I wouldn't have to wear this brace. They had me in a god-awful brace, and they said I'd have to wear it for the next 5 years, or you could have this surgery and be done in 6 months. And I didn't have any problems before the surgery, but after the surgery, I was sick all the time. But they never told me it was from the surgery because that was a success. But I had pain. My immune system was really weakened. Just, strep throat, headaches, chicken pox, everything came along. I got it for the next 5 years. And every time I went to a medical doctor, I kept saying, why do I keep getting sick? And they would say, let me just write you a stronger prescription. And I was like, I don't think they know why I'm sick, or they don't have answers for me. And so I was doing what I was told. You had to go to college to get a degree, to get a good job. And I was doing that, even though I hated it. And I was in college trying to find myself. And someone told me about chiropractic. You should look into chiropractic. And I thought, well, isn't that just medical school? I'm not too fond of what I'm being shown the medical world is right now, even though I felt a calling. Like I thought it would be cool to help people. And so I read the pamphlet and it said the power that made the body heals the body. And I was like, oh, why hasn't anyone said this to me in these last 5 years of my life and all this that I'm going through? And so I looked into the school. It's funny, chiropractic, I always say, walks two worlds because it looked like a legit degree. You can make a living. It would make my mom happy, with society happy, what I was told I should do. But there was this thing about it that interested me for the first time in life. And I just went to chiropractic school without even getting adjusted. And that's why it was I feel like a God call, because I got there and it just changed my life. And it wasn't a quick fix. I started getting adjusted, but my spine had so much trauma from the surgeries because they ended up removing my rods. And I'm grateful because they were putting those rods in to fuse my spine. Whereas a chiropractor, I'm adjusting the spine because it should be moving freely because the nervous system exits through there. That's how your brain body communicates. That's the immune system. That's the energy flow, God force, life force. That's the power that made the body heals the body. It's doing its thing. And the adjustments clear out the stress. And eventually it wasn't a quick fix for me, but I got to a place of viewing health from a different perspective, how we heal ourselves. And I lost the fear of all the symptoms I was feeling and that I could actually get better. I knew I could get better. I had faith in it again. And I did. And it changed my life. And so I got out on a mission. Ignorance is bliss. I got out at 23 and I said, I'm going to open my own practice because I wanted to practice on principle. I saw that my profession was a little split. Some of them were kind of leaning towards the medical world. Some were leaning towards wellness. And I wanted to be wellness, straight chiropractic. And I wanted to change the world. I wanted to get out. And I thought everybody needs to know this. This is why people are suffering in life. But then I realized not many people wanted to hear what I had to say. And that really kind of shocked me. That was a whole beginning of another journey. And also, you'll appreciate this, I opened a business with no business or money background. No one taught me anything about that stuff all those years of school. And I thought, holy crap, now I really gotta, I just started reading all kinds of financial books, and which led me to Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which kind of was an aha moment for me about leveraging your time and creating residual income and tax shelters and all this kind of stuff. It was kind of like when I discovered chiropractic, it changed my view on health. The Rich Dad Poor Dad changed my view on money flow. And it was, to me, in practice also, I saw that the rat race, living like you describe on your podcast, it was killing people. I saw that. I'm like, people don't have purpose anymore. They don't have passion. They're living to make ends meet. They're stressed about money. They don't have enough time. Let alone they're not choosing what would be really good for their health because they're doing what their insurance dictates because that's all they can afford. If they want to buy organic, it costs more. If they want to do alternative treatments, it's out of pocket. And I'm like, isn't our health priceless? That really bothered me. Even I had to get over even people paying me for my service because it was such a practice thing for me, So there was a lot of stuff that I learned just in the first few years of practice that really, I felt like that's when I really started digging into learning about life and went from there.
Wow, you're going to be floored. I have scoliosis. I've
Oh,
actually I've actually suffered with it my whole life as a degenerative spine disease. Depending on, like you said, the curvature, it's horrible. I've used to be 10 years ago 6 feet and a half inch. Now I'm 5'9.5". I've lost that much of my height. And you talk about, I was 14 when I was diagnosed with it. It's actually, you can see it in the genetics of my family. You can see my great grandparent, my grandpa had it, my grandpa, so my great grandfather had it, my grandpa had it, my dad, you can see it in him. My sister suffered with it. I decided not to get the surgery with the rods because, I looked at the different people I had to. They actually put a complete cage brace on me. I talk about it in my book. It's hard to talk about. There's actually part of one of the chapters where I talk about the journey and what I went through. But I was in hospital. I lived in a rural community, so I had to go to the big city, right? I had to go to the big city, I had to be there for a week. They molded this, they plaster casted me and put this brace on me with it. So I had the bar up here, gut sucked in, the two bars behind my head locked in place. For 3 years, I wore that brace, 23 hours a day. And they managed to catch it so that I was growing properly. But there's so many things they don't tell you about the long-term problems that you can go through. And I get treated all the time for it. And I'm still standing up. I still am able to do a lot of things, not as much as I used to do, because of some of the problems with mobility. And I'm afraid to, like golfing, for an example, I could swing the wrong way and all of a sudden now a different part of my body hurts, because people don't realize how, of course you would, with your nervous system and your spine, everything is interconnected, right? That is like our highway communication system of how we live, right? And the scoliosis bit has been brutal for me when I was younger. I've learned to live with it. I don't even just cope with it. It's part of my daily life. I do specific things so that I stay healthy. I seek out specific alternative and medical help in regards to controlling it. But yeah, when you said that, I was just like, oh my gosh, it's the first person I've ever talked to. But that, besides my own, my kids, my 5 kids have scoliosis as well. So yeah, you're the first guest I've ever had on that's had scoliosis. You're the second person I know that's had the Harrington rods. Another gentleman I know who was in the hospital around that same time from my own community, he had the rods done and he's had nothing but health issues his whole life, right? He's in his 50s as well. And I always wondered if it was the rods that caused the problem, because it is a foreign body within inside of our body. And really, is it something that is good for us? It's hard to say. I'm not a scientist. I didn't say doctor for those listening, because doctors are great, but I also know doctors that are just on the hamster wheel of life themselves, and they do, like you were mentioning, have a stronger prescription. They don't really look at the holistic and build that relationship and that connection and understand the fact of there's so much more that they could be learning or doing for their patients. And again, I'm not against doctors, but the reason I said science is scientists are always on the move. In my experience, they're always on the climb to learn, and they don't just take things as being gospel or de facto standard. They're always looking for a different resolve. We won't get into it, but some of the different surgical procedures that I've seen in regards to scoliosis, oh my gosh, has it ever advanced? Or they don't put bars in anymore now. Have you seen some of the things that they do? They literally go in and they make little incisions and they put in and they literally stretch you out. Like, it looks so painful. I don't know if I can handle that.
I just think that there's ways to get behind the emotion behind it. And also I think chiropractic adjustments would make a big difference. I wish I was adjusted the whole time. But you know what? I still have a crooked spine. I have parts of my spine missing because of the surgery, and I don't have any problems. And I don't live in that mindset that I have problems because I have scoliosis. I'm completely here. I'm in better shape now than I ever was. And so I don't, that's the thing I've realized is that we can still become new. We don't have to buy into what the label was given us. We can really, we're always making ourselves new and healing ourselves. And the more empowered we become, we have to have hope and believe that your body's always making itself new every day. So
Oh,
you can
absolutely.
really, if we hold the belief that we have this, I don't care what it is, scoliosis, anything. We keep creating it. We have the drama behind it. We have the problems, but you can move through that by saying, I'm healthy, taking care of yourself, and really getting happy and clearing your mind is the major key, I believe, for the immune system. It really is the overall to
Well,
how we heal.
the 6 inches between our ears is huge. Like you talked about your father and dying of a broken heart. When we have trauma between our 6 inches between our ears, and literally you said he died of cancer. Well, our body, when we're happy, of course we have to create our own happy. We have to seek it out. We have to practice being happy, and we have to feel fulfilled. I look at a lot of different people throughout my life where they have passed away shortly after their significant other. And it's not even necessarily an age issue. It's
Right.
because their heart's broken and their immune system picks up on that. How it does
That,
scientifically, it doesn't matter. I just see it as a reality from the outside and see that circumstance. And all of a sudden that person's passed away. Or they say to somebody, well, I don't know why that young person passed away. They got into an accident or they had some circumstance happen. They were so healthy. Well, physical health, everybody always talks about physical health, but they don't talk about that 6 inches. They don't talk about that mental health. So, your dad, that's sad that he had to have that happen to him in life. And I do see a correlation to him having cancer. Cancer is an evil thing, but I look at all the people in my life that I know have had cancer in some way, shape, or form. They had given up on their climb emotionally or mentally. They're physically maybe healthy, but that's not good enough.
absolutely. A physical is just one aspect. And people would come into my office and say, I have this pain, but I don't know why, because everything, I didn't do anything. And I'm like, well, are you really stressed out? No. And then they would describe their day or or what's going on in their life. And I was stressed out listening to it. And I thought, where's the disconnect? They're not connecting that they're living very stressed, but that's normal. That was normal. And the thing is, if you're not going to address that, it's going to come out physically. There's nowhere else for the energy to go. It has to come out physically. So there's such a correlation. So when you can make that connection, you're so empowered. You really can get an aha moment in your life.
Oh, absolutely. Like I look at a couple days ago, I was having challenges and it was physical in nature. My lower back, where my scoliosis curve is, mine curves over to the right. And now when I think about it, when you mentioned that, it was my state of mind. I was stressed out about something that two of my adult children are going through because they're all adults now. And though I try not to worry, I do a practice of not worrying because I've trained myself to not worry, because all I'm doing is torturing myself twice leading up to something maybe happening or not happening. And I realized, just in this moment, I was worrying that day and I never caught it. And why I bring that up to the listeners and to you is because I'm a working project the rest of my life till I take my last breath. Even something and
Absolutely.
somebody that's trained, I've trained myself to do things and I coach other people to do that. I'm weak some days. Things get by me. And then I forget, I just reminded myself I would have caught that if I did my reflection properly at night when I do my gratefulness, gratitude exercise before I go to bed. I didn't reflect on why I felt that way. So, listeners, we're all work in project, right? I just learned something just from this simple
You are.
conversation with Lynn. So, to check in, right? Check in with yourself, right? So that's, yeah, I like the fact though, Rich Dad Poor Dad. That was one of my first books too. It was a fantastic. It wasn't my absolute first book of personal development. For me, it was Think and Grow Rich, The Magic of Thinking Big. One of my favorite first books that I got though, and I've gone through it 5 times now, is The Five Love Languages.
Oh
And
yeah.
I don't utilize that as the 5 love languages for relationships with a significant other. It's people I deal with on a daily, my clients, my friends, my families, just everybody out there in life has a love language. And that book's always resonated with me. I don't know why, but it just does. Maybe because I'm a touchy feely kind of guy. But yeah, Rich, Think and Grow Rich, though, it was a great book. But when I think about a book that really impacted me even more would be Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I listened to it the first time, wasn't even reading it. I ended up having on CDs. I'm dating myself for the listeners because I do have younger listeners. I know you might not know what a CD is. Ask your parents. So yeah, I had it was like 30 CDs. I had, right, and I'd be driving along, and all of a sudden, I'd hope for one would get done, and I'd hope for a light change so I could reach over and pop in a new one. And but what an impactful book! I'm glad to hear that it changed your life. About Robert Kiyosaki. It's so powerful. Those that are listening, great read, great listen. You can get it on listen to it on Audible as well. But yeah, and then you know what? I think one of the things that really I'd like to talk more about though is you talk about health is priceless and how society isn't designed around the organic and and the holistic. You got to pay for it out of pocket, but they're so quick to, if you do have insurance, to pay for prescription drugs. See, for me, it's big pharma and the government are in bed with one another. They're not about us
Absolutely.
staying healthy. They'd rather us do like they did to you. Here, Lynn, take more drugs. Let's increase the dose. So, can you talk to me more about what you feel about that and how it's affected your practice and where you're going currently in your life?
Yeah, I felt like in my practice, the reason I felt like I outgrew it because I really didn't want to play doctor. I wanted to, and I was very, very practice chiropractic in the purest sense. I had open walk-in hours, cash only. I didn't do insurance. I kept the price very low so people could come regularly. But I felt like I could adjust people all day long. But I heard the same stories over and over again. I would suggest read this book or what's going on and make the changes. And I felt that people weren't doing the inner work on themselves. And I thought it was very important to have healthy habits, to have mindset, work on your mindset, to work on your finances. Because if you're going to a job that you hate every day, find your purpose, find something. Because if you're going to a job that you hate every day, it's killing you. And people, I mean, it's literally killing you. It's draining your life force. So that's why I'm so big about people finding a lifestyle, finding their purpose, their passion, finding what makes them happy, because that is what keeps you healthy. I mean, even, you can be having healthy habits, but you don't have even if you have bad relationships, like they're all interconnected. It's about the energy flow in your life and what's supporting you, not you draining your energy and giving to things that aren't supporting you. And it really is connected. I think some people think I'm just saying it as a metaphor or it's like this hope idea. I'm like, no, it's literal. It's really happening. So I mean, you start paying attention, but we've been trained as a society to kind of numb out, right? To give our power away, to be on that rat race of life and to do what other people tell us to do, whether it's the medical world or the boss, the priest, whatever. But it's about getting back to, I think it's the God force within that small whisper within is God talking to you. That's your connection to God. And so he wants us to be happy. You have a joy. If this inspires you, this thing inspires you, or if you have passion for this, it's important. We've been told that it's not important. You can't, it's like, oh, you can't live on your dreams. Well, I think there's a way to bridge the gap. They've screwed our money system up so bad. We have to really pay attention to, you kind of need it. Multiple streams of income, tax shelters. You have to set your money up a certain way because they destroyed our currency. So that's why I'm so, and I think sounds so simple, but you talk about the gratitude practice. When people ask me, like, where do I start? I think journaling is one of the most amazing things, because pen to paper, I think something happens, helps your brain. I think it's very therapeutic. But if you can start writing what you're grateful for every day, even if it's just a couple of things, like you just woke up, or you see the sun shining, or that you can take a breath, they're important, because sometimes we take those things for granted. So if we get in a habit of training ourselves to look things that we're grateful for, and then the next step is write things down that inspire you, or what makes you happy. Even if it was that you saw some flowers today that were beautiful, well, that lifted your heart, write it down. We have to get back in touch with that space, because that's the higher vibe. That's the higher energy. That's what brings on that God force, or that life force in us, that heals us, that we start getting into that synchronistic flow of life where we attract what we need, more abundance, better people, where you're really getting support, because I think it's all synergistic. So it's about us learning to work with our energy. And the first place to start, gratitude and inspiration.
Oh, absolutely. Even the simplest things, like if you remember what Amrit and I talked about, we talked about the fact of gratitude and gratefulness. We talked about it in a podcast. And what we did, we talked about the fact of it doesn't take long. It doesn't have to be, people will go, well, I don't have the time. Do you have a minute? Do you have 2 minutes? I've gotten up and forgotten to do it, and I'm brushing my teeth and realize, ooh, I didn't do it. So I'm brushing my teeth and doing it. It doesn't take much. You just need to let yourself feel it. Let yourself actually acknowledge the fact, like it's something as simple as there's oxygen in the air. I get to breathe today. I've got toes I can wiggle. Like I've laid in bed before wiggling my toes and said, thanks God for letting me have toes, because without them, I wouldn't be able to balance. Right? Like, thank you for my feet to plant on the ground in a few moments. Thank you for my legs, and just simple stuff. And some people will go, that's corny or whatever. But you know what? I'm not looking to please the masses. I'm looking to please the willing. I'm looking to please those that are wanting to change, even if they don't even realize it yet, and they're just having a conversation and they're intrigued. Maybe I can be that spark within their mindset, their emotional and their mental connection to their physical body, to take that first baby step. Maybe it's proper nutrition. Maybe it's proper exercise. Maybe it's proper sleep, right? One of the worst things that people kill themselves with every single day is lack of sleep. And that's one of our number one things, I believe, to keep us emotionally in check, is proper sleep. So there's so many different things, but yes, I like the fact you talked about journal, writing things down. I myself, like, just there's notes that I'm taking as we're talking, right? It's pen to paper. It is powerful. You bring up so many valid points. We're gonna move on though from your origin, because I have a couple other things. Like, I understand why, but I want it to be more specific, why you decided to go and, you've got your chiropractic, you got your bachelor's degree in nutrition, they tied together. And I know quite a few chiropractors. One of my good friends that I went to school with, high school, is a chiropractor in my hometown, and he isn't necessarily tied to the nutrition side too. You know what I mean? Like, there's even medical doctors. There's some medical doctors that are more holistic slanted, just like you talked about. There's some chiropractors that have different avenues of how they practice. What was it that made you want to practice that way? Was there something within your life that you grew up that you knew nutrition had to be tied to that wellness? Was there somebody that mentored you? Like, what was your aha moment, your light bulb moment that made it you decide to connect those two to make your practice that much more valuable to the consumer?
It was really as simple as they offered a simultaneous degree at my school. And I
Okay.
saw that I could get a bachelor's in nutrition. But what was very interesting is that we had nutrition courses in the chiropractic program, and then we had nutrition courses in the bachelor's program. And that some of them could overlap. So what I was learning in the chiropractic world was about eating clean, eating whole, cleansing your body, doing fasts. Not that I'm a big proponent of all that, but it was understanding getting rid of the toxins from the body and eating whole, nutritious food, right? And filling your body with things that are good for it. Whereas the side of the school was still taught by dietitians who were from the old school 4 food groups.
Oh my gosh,
And
yeah.
oh yeah, it was crazy. And I mean, this is in the 90s, so it really wasn't this full blown eating organic. I don't feel like it really started to come together until after, unless I was just more aware of it. But the chiropractic students in the school would just give those poor teachers all kinds of grief. Like they probably hated us because we disproved all their theory. Like we would just like, excuse me, that doesn't make sense. That's not good for you. And it was probably a nightmare for them. But for me to get that experience, even in the nutrition, so I already saw the dichotomy in the medical world because I had to learn the medical stuff too. Because as a chiropractor, to get our doctorates, we had to pass all, and our license, we had to pass all these boards. So we basically had to get a medical degree alongside of learning to adjust or learning the philosophy of chiropractic, how the body heals itself. And I'm like, they look at health from a totally different perspective, just like the dietitians look at the diet totally different than like a nutritionist. I don't even know if that's the right word today because I know things have evolved since then, but I saw the two sides in both aspects and it was so empowering. I think that was empowering, and also having my own healing experience through it was probably one of the most powerful things that could have happened to me, to really have the awakening of how we heal and how the body works and the ahas.
I love that, the awakening, because it was the same for me. I was the typical, everybody talks about the North American diet, and there's the Mediterranean diet, and it's how people eat, and yes, at one point in time, 4 food groups, and this amount of your plate should be this amount of this and this and that. And the realization was probably for me was when I had joint custody of my kids, and eventually I became a full-time dad of my children, 4 of the 5. And I was noticing health issues with, my one daughter was having cramps, or she was always getting migraines, and another daughter had this challenges. And I started doing a little as good as research as I could, because obviously today there's more information with Dr. Google, right? with
Yeah.
with
Oh, yeah.
with being able to research, and as a side note, people researching, don't believe the first thing you read. Go
I
check
know.
out more than one thing.
There's a
Like,
lot of
come
fear
on.
stuff on there too that can
Yeah.
maybe not help you.
Yeah, there's a lot of wacky stuff on the internet. So, I started doing elimination diet stuff, right? We're all in a diet. I don't care if you're paleo, keto. I don't care if you're meat and potatoes diet. We're all in a diet of some sort of type, a nutritional diet, whether you want to call a nutritionist now, like you said, that you're not sure of the term. Well, I never hear dietitian anymore, even though my close cousin of mine, she's a dietitian. She calls herself, all of a sudden now she's a nutritionist. Whatever, tomato, as long as you're evolving in your career, cousin, and doing the right things for people, that's all I care. Right. But bottom line, I started doing elimination diets, found out my one daughter had a severe gluten intolerance, which would trigger migraines for her. Dairy would trigger massive, cramps when she'd have her period every month. Another daughter, meat was no good around her. Like it didn't matter what it was. Chicken, didn't matter if it was beef, didn't matter if it was pork. Started cooking different for her. She's vegetarian now. This many years later, she's 30 years old. She's a vegan. she's very intelligent. She researched it. She understood there's can be some challenges so that she fulfills all her nutritional needs. Very happy person, very happy life. Other people will go, you can't be healthy unless you're eating a steak. Well, yeah, you can. You just got to put in the effort to understand what kind of nutritional lifestyle do you want to live. And hopefully it's not sugar based, full of hydrogenated this, processed this, dye number red 40, and this and that. And if the first few ingredients are sugar and sodium and stuff like that, run, don't hide,
Yep.
just run away. Right? There's you can find stuff that is way better for you. And again, people out there, you go out to eat or you go to a relative's house and they have this beautiful cheesecake or they have this nice cake. It's okay to live in moderation. You don't have to live a life where you're stuck between walls. And I don't know if Lynn agrees or not, but like I live a very low carb diet. I live very healthy intentionally. I stay away from root vegetables for reasons that I won't get into. Unless you want that kind of conversation, but there's certain things that I've researched that, and for me, my engine fires better, right? Maybe for another person listening, they have to have that and they fire better. That's great. Just do you figure out you though, and put effort into it. That's what most of us lack is we don't put effort into understanding what our body is screaming out about, right? Why am I feeling lethargic all the time? Oh, wait a minute. I got up and had 4 pancakes with a bunch of artificial syrup on it. And I had a donut and I drank a big cup of coffee from Starbucks with all this sugar and all this additives in it. And by 10:30, I'm like dragging my butt on the ground. I wonder, like it's just realization. And I know I get people reach out to me. Oh, you're pretty adamant about how you feed your body. I said, yep, I've been intermittent fasting for 5 years now. I have a time window where I eat, and then I'm very specific about what I eat. But guess what? There's days like a couple days ago, a good friend of mine wanted to get together for breakfast, and I normally don't eat breakfast. Guess what I did? I ate breakfast, but I ate a healthy breakfast as best I could. I wasn't eating pancakes with artificial syrup or asking for a big cinnamon bun. And I'm not saying cinnamon buns are good. I'm just saying I had to realize what made me tick and what my engine needed. So, any comments about that?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think that's what I think people need to get back to. Not one plan is good for everybody, but it's about understanding what I like when people get back to their natural cravings and knowing what their body needs. And sometimes that can be through a process of learning to eliminate some of the toxins, see how it affects you. I do believe that we can eat the junk and your body can get rid of it. But the problem is we've been eating the junk 24/7. That's a problem, because then your body is like on toxin overload. That's when it starts to go in dis-ease state because it's constantly trying to get rid of these toxins that's not natural to the body. So a little bit, no problem. But you need to counteract it with, cleaning up, getting rid of the chemicals and the processing and the pesticides and try to get whole nutritious food in you at least part of the time. Otherwise your
Oh,
body is just
absolutely.
going to. So that's why I'm kind of meal to meal. Like I know if I can handle, like, oh, could I handle that? Maybe dessert. Like, am I craving that? I'll have it. But if I have it, I'm going to enjoy it. That's the other thing. I think we need to stop judging
every
everything, right?
every forkful, every spoonful.
Yeah.
If I'm having a cheat, like I did a few nights ago, went to this restaurant. They make these fluffy little donuts with this, what's it called, mariposa sauce underneath, and I knew it was my body was going to react a certain way. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to enjoy every single mouthful of this right to the end. And the consequences, I know how to get past it
Yep.
because probably was 3 months ago that I did the exact same dessert at the exact same restaurant. And I've been there since, and I just don't. But life is about experiences, that delicacy, that texture on my tongue, the sweetness, just everything. It was like joyful. It was worth the
Yeah.
consequence.
Because I think people who are so rigid in their diet and so judgmental about everything they put in their mouth are also doing themselves as much harm. because that uptightness, that stress and worry and psychological stuff is not good. So, you know what I mean? Like, be a little more open about it. Not that you
People
shouldn't
beat
care at all.
themselves up. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And that does just as much harm. I don't know if people make that connection, but when they're that uptight about everything they're eating and worrying about it all, that's just, to me, it's just as bad. Just enjoy your meal. And then the
I
next
know.
time, like if I have a junk meal, usually I'm craving something healthy the next meal because that's just the way my body flows. I enjoy the salads. I enjoy the smoothies. I enjoy things like that and a healthy meal. I enjoy that just as well as when I have a good dessert. Or like I love coffee. Like coffee's my zen moment. Some people judge it, but I'm like, it's funny because I think about my origin of my love affair with coffee. You have coffee? Because I think that when I went to chiropractic school in Atlanta or Marietta, Georgia is where it was, it was the first time I saw people really enjoying life. And my two roommates they really enjoyed their life. Like, and so they would have good coffee. Like they would grind the beans, they'd be steaming the milk. They would, it would be an experience. And I think I associate the coffee with those moments. And we would have a cup of coffee together and be present and and have good conversation. And so I have my coffee and it's like, it's my Zen moment for me. I just enjoy the coffee,
I love, I love that. It's a connection because I grind my own beans. I have for many years, and people will go, "Well, you're in a rush and stuff. Why don't you just go to, run through, drive through and grab a coffee or whatever?" So I said, no, I said, I just grind enough coffee for a few days. It doesn't have to be ground fresh every day. I go over and I fill up my little refillable, put my grounds in, and I make myself my coffee. The whole experience from that, maybe it's 4 or 5 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. And then I don't put cream in my coffee except for the weekends. I put natural stevia, and I'm very anal about what I put in for it. I've got some flavored stevia. Otherwise, so really it's black coffee with a little bit of natural sweetener in it. But every sip of it is an experience. And I think to myself, oh, I can taste that little bit of bitterness. I can taste that little bit of sweetness. It's just like you said, it's a Zen moment.
yeah.
But I can have that Zen moment even while talking to you. Or maybe I'm
Yes.
sitting by myself because I don't judge myself for liking coffee. We have a society that says, oh, you shouldn't have coffee. Then you got part of the society that says that coffee can be good for you, for your health. And the outside noise, listeners, that you're hearing from society, do your own research and put some effort into it. Not everything's bad. Like Lynn said, moderation is okay. Having that cheesecake or having whatever you like once in a while, maybe you like a bag of chips.
Yep.
Maybe it's not the healthiest for you, but you feel like you want a bag of chips. Well, then do it in moderation.
Yep.
Once a week, I'm going to have a bag of chips. Once a month, I'm going to have donuts or whatever,
You know what I noticed? If you're really in tune with yourself, you stop when you're full and you don't overeat the junk that's bad for you. Because if you're really feeling good, if you're really in tune with your energy, you feel good. You don't want to wreck it too much. If you stuff yourself or you're eating too much junk, it lowers your energy. And I feel it right away.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to stay there long. Sometimes I can have something that we wouldn't consider healthy and it doesn't affect my flow at all. But it's being in tune with that space. So we should have more coffee moments, right? More happy Zen coffee moments.
Oh, absolutely. Because as you mentioned, your energy. So your energy, people listening, your energy, you can feel your energy once you get in tune to it. I always have to keep in tune with it. I got to work on it. It's not all of a sudden like, oh, okay, I figured it out. Now I'm just going to coast the rest of my life. That's not the way it is. So I agree with what Lynn's saying. I got to stay attuned to my energy, and I can have those Zen moments with coffee. And then on the weekends, I know that I'm going to have it with heavy cream. Why? Because I like that different flavor profile with my stevia, and I look forward to it. I don't sit there and go, oh my gosh, I'm going to make it through the week so I can do this Saturday. No, it's my next level of Zen, and it's on the weekend. But that's what my life is. Or, oh, I'm making salmon tonight. Oh, I really like it with asparagus. Oh, I associate that. And that to me can be another moment of clarity, Zen, whatever, where it's just like, and then I'm eating and I'm going, wow, this is so good together. And that's a
Definitely.
me. It doesn't mean other people have to like that combination. Maybe you like it with Brussels sprouts, or maybe you don't like salmon. Maybe you just, maybe you like your big steak. Whatever makes you happy, but do it in a sense that you're always realizing that your internal engine needs the proper nutrition in order to fire properly, just like you need to listen and associate with the right people to make sure your brain is functioning
Yeah.
as well. Right. So,
Well,
Lynn, you've gathered a lot of insight learning to heal yourself, suffering from sickness and pain, and we've talked a little bit about it over the last 18 years. You practiced as a chiropractor, pardon me, for 18 years, and you saw that chronic stress was a main issue for most people, not healing. I myself have suffered from chronic stress and anxiety throughout my life and lived decades in a state of quiet desperation, and I'm not afraid to admit that to people. I have developed things for myself and now coach others in some of the processes that can help them deal with stress, anxiety, depression, and worry. I know you have found that much of it comes from not enough perceived time, not enough money, and not having passion or purpose in life. Can you share some of the insights that you've learned along your own journey of what you utilize to help individuals get to the hills and valleys of life, and most especially how to escape that life of living in a constant state of quiet desperation?
yep. Well, the first place I think is what I mentioned with the journaling, because I think that's really key to start getting in tune with your gratitude and what makes you happy. And then, everybody has a different area that maybe they're struggling with more than others, whether it's your health or your finances or your relationships or just not feeling excited about life. So you kind of have to go with what area you want to work on, because they're all going to interact. Probably one area will maybe lead to the next. It opens up other doors. But for me, I think a great place was I was big on researching and reading for myself, and I've accumulated a lot of resources that I think help people kind of give them. I call it a blueprint to create your desired life. That's where I wrote my book to share my story of how I overcame things and found my own grace state. And I have, a healthy living plan that people can follow if they want. It's just like a guideline, so that it's a place to start so you can get in tune with yourself. Even with the finances, if you want to get like another stream of income, I have that option. I also put together a master class to kind of, if you were to have a consult with me and really sit for like an hour and a half about what I see as true well-being, I put that together too. So I have things that I put together for people, but it's about getting in tune with your happiness, your gratitude, creating healthy habits, like being aware of what you're eating, why you're eating, um, cleaning up the toxins. I think that's important. Creating money flow, being in tune with your money flow, because it's such a big energy. A lot of people don't want to deal with it, or they don't think it's spiritual. But if you think about it, every choice you make every day is usually, it's a lot of it's affected by how much money you have coming in your life or your bank account, what you're choosing to eat, if you can buy organic, if you can, you know, take the time off you need to heal, just having that time freedom. Uh, are you pursuing passions or purpose? Like, do you feel fulfilled in your life? And that's about maybe service to others, which is service to yourself. We were talking about that. That's really a full loop. You know, I went to Brazil and India on mission trips with other chiropractors just to bring chiropractic to those areas. And really, I went with the mindset like I'm going to serve others, but if they serve, it serves me. That's where I had my greatest self realizations was adjusting those people in those countries. Just the energy, like we went as a group of 12 chiropractors to Brazil. We couldn't speak the language. So people were just lining up to get adjusted. It was all energetic, and we would just feel their spine and adjust where we felt like we needed. And we were doing that all day long for like a week. The energy was so high. It was such, I want to call it love, a love vibration, but love is so randomly used, right? For so many things that we've kind of taken the power away from it. But that high vibe love, and it was, I never felt something like that. I didn't even know what I was going on. It was so high. But when I came home, I crashed. I crashed into like a depressed state because the energy just wasn't there. It wasn't the same. And I knew we tapped into something. And I'm like, I think I'm supposed to be learning how to bring that energy into my life every day. And I went 3 years in a row to Brazil. The third year, I came back and I felt like I had, and I wasn't speaking like this at the time. I felt like I had a dark energy on me. And I didn't understand how we can kind of take on other people's stuff. And even as a healer, sometimes I can take on somebody's negative vibe. It's like an energetic thing. And I didn't understand that. And I was very sick when I came back from Brazil. I had bug bites all over. I had a fever, but I just let it run its course. I knew I had to let my body do its thing. But the remnants of that were, it was like a residual was on me and I couldn't get it off. And there was a lady I was adjusting in my office, and she was an intuitive, and she said, "You have a lot of dark energy on you." And I was like, "Oh," because I didn't say that to her. It was what I was feeling. And she said, "You ought to take Epsom salt baths for a week and tell the dark energy to go to the light, light a white candle." And I was just open to it. Before I might have thought that was kooky, but she was speaking the language that I didn't have language for. I was feeling this. So I did that. And I went into the high vibe state like I felt in Brazil the first year. And I call it the grace state. That's why I labeled my book, My Journey to Grace. Grace is that it's like you're falling in love with someone, but there's no other person. It's you. And we realize that's who we are. That place is what we're searching for. With every time we think we want to eat more, every time we think we want more money, every time we're searching for the next relationship, we're looking for that high vibe within us. So if you can find that high vibe within you, that grace state, then if you can create your life from that place, it's magical, because now you're not looking for the outside in to fill you. You're filled. And now you're creating from that place, that God space. And life becomes just amazing. So that's, I think, doing the work on yourself, working on your healthy habits, working on your finances. That is one way to start tapping into your grace state. We think it's outside of us, but it's like me serving someone else, right? I found I was served. When we start doing the work to get our life in order, we start tapping into the power within. I think that's how you get very in tune to yourself.
Yeah, wow. Your happiness, gratitude, your health habits, your money flow, really, obviously 21 years into doing financial planning and tying it into life of figuring out where people, what makes them tick and what ticks them off, and the pattern teachings and behavior. Money flow is important because the rest can happen. If you're going to bed every single night wondering how you're going to pay the bills the next day, knowing that you have to go and buy cheap garbage because you can't afford to buy more natural foods, it weighs on a person. Because I went through that as a single dad, right? I went through that, and I was in finance, but yet I was teaching people this stuff, but I stopped living it ourselves. And the reason I bring this up for the listeners is we always have to be in check. We always have to check ourselves. We always have to reevaluate where we're at to stay on the proper path. It's not something that just happens naturally. Back to what we talked about earlier. It's not like you just arrive. Oh, I arrived. Okay, I don't have to do anything more. There's so many more different things you have to utilize. Money is definitely a big problem for people, though. I see a lot of health issues that happen in families, and addiction, violence, depression, anxiety, stress, all tied to money. And obviously, nutrition is going to focus on helping along all that stuff. But if you don't have the money to be able to do that, and you're eating ramen noodles all the time, and you're not getting proteins, you're not getting healthy fats, and all you're having is carbs, your body's going to not like it. Right. In my opinion. Right. So I appreciate the fact that you brought that up. And, that trip to Brazil and that energy and having somebody suggest something, and you were able to be open-minded. That's what I thought to myself, right? How am I going to achieve that gray state? Well, if you're asking yourself that, listeners, you have to be open-minded. You have to be willing to listen to others say, maybe I need to take an Epsom salt bath and light a white candle and just try it out. What do I got to lose? What do you have to lose, listeners? What do you have to lose for just reaching out to Lynn or myself and just having a conversation? You got nothing to, you got nothing to lose. You have a ton to gain, right? A few minutes of your life, invest instead of watching that one more episode on Netflix. How about you invest an hour with one of us? Maybe we can make that difference and actually help you so you're living a life that's purposeful and not by accident. So I appreciate all you shared. And you talked about your book, My Journey to Grace, correct?
Yes.
Where can people find that before we go on to the next thing?
So I have a website, creatingmydesiredlife.com, and it's also
Okay,
on Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
sweet. I'll make sure that's in the show notes. Usually I talk about it at the end, but loyal listeners, you already know where to find the show notes. Those that are new to the show, just go to giveaheck.com, hit the podcast portal button. It's labeled, it's easy to find. You'll go in there and you'll see the picture of Lynn, and below there, I'll make sure that all the links to her social media as well as her websites there so that you can easily access her and go buy her book.
Some people don't know where to get started. That's why I think it's so important to follow your inspiration, because I feel like it's your inspiration. If you're inspired by someone, try to connect with them or get their book or whoever it is, whether it's you or I. But I think the inspiration,
Anybody,
or
yeah, just get
yeah,
help.
even like if you're inspired to go to a certain place, go there. Maybe you're going to get a message. So that's why I think it's so important to, I think some people, we don't take that seriously, but I feel like that's, our God talking to us and guiding us to what we need. It
Yeah,
may look like,
that gray state, that gray
yeah,
state is tied directly for those that aren't faith bearing in the sense of connection to God. If you're, people say they're spiritual, if you're agnostic, atheist, whatever, you can label yourself whatever you want, but you need to get to a point of having that gray state where you give yourself grace for the past, you accept the current state you're in, and you work toward a better state of life where you're, having those Zen moments. I love how you put that, Thai drinking the coffee or whatever. It's those little things in life that we need to be grateful for. I'm even grateful for the fact that I have an arm that can pick up a coffee, right?
absolutely,
Like I know people
absolutely.
that have lost limbs. So, it's
That's
just
right.
look around you and say, wow, would other people appreciate what I have? What other people wish they had what I had? Like quit looking at other people's lives and putting them on a pedestal, realizing that they're where they're at because they've done specific choices. Hopefully you're looking at people that are a good example, not people that are going to drag you backwards in life. But yeah, it all goes back to the fact of the gray state takes happiness, gratitude, your healthy habits in life, and your money flow. It's so true. Which order? Start somewhere.
Start somewhere. And it's funny. This is another thing that happened to me when I was in that very high vibe state. And really now I feel like I can monitor in the moment. Am I feeling high or am I feeling low? And I can honor it, right? And I can know how to get myself into a better place, because sometimes I won't make a decision when I'm feeling low energy. I'm like, let me just take a break and refuel myself or rest a minute. And then all of a sudden, then I can make a better decision. But and when I was in that first time in that gray state, it was such a high vibe that even what I thought were problems were laughable. So that's what we can't take ourselves too seriously, because it's just to have these experiences here and to become all that we want to be, and really have a joyous ride. I think we're here to create heaven on earth. But if that's what I thought, and that I was like, oh my gosh, I thought that was, look at me trying to do that. Isn't that funny? Like it was like there was no problems in that state. They were there, but they weren't, I didn't view them as problems anymore. They were opportunities or an experience.
I like that. Heaven on earth. I haven't thought of that phrase in a while, but it is so true. We literally, though, you also talked about, I call it a timeout, right? Maybe sometimes in your day, like I focus on this, and part of my practice of teaching people is what I practice on myself daily. I don't have bad days. Why? Because I tell myself bad days are not part of my agenda. I woke up today. I'm grateful for being alive. I'm going to have this moment. maybe it's going to happen, maybe it won't. But if it does happen, I'm going to time myself out. I'm going to check myself out so that I can approach and come back in a different state of mind. And I can also, I know it sounds weird, but I appreciate those bad moments because it is a check and balance for me to realize that I'm human, I'm weak, I don't necessarily have everything in place that I need to have in place. So, okay, I'm going to close my computer. I'm going to get up and I'm going to go sit on the couch. I'm going to have a glass of water, maybe a herbal tea, whatever. And I'm just going to check myself out. And I have specific processes that help me reconnect back to gratitude, back to appreciation, to understand what just happened, why I got there, what can I do different so that same thing doesn't happen again. And you know what? That same thing might happen all the time. Maybe that's just part of who Dwight is. And I got to check myself out once or twice a week because of that circumstance. But I'm okay with that because I acknowledge it and I accept it and I embrace it and realize, okay, that's who I am. Quit beating myself up. This is what I need to do 2-3 times a week, check myself out, come back, move on with my day. Right?
How can we know? How can we really know what's good if we don't experience the bad? It's all part of the whole experience. We need that contrast. And I don't have bad days either. I may have bad moments, but right away I'm like, hey, I'm not feeling, because I think my normal state is a much higher happy state now. But that's been, that was me working on towards that for a long time till it became my normal state. And so now if I feel off, I check myself too. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to take a minute because I'm not in my flow right now. And that's okay. But I usually and then all of a sudden synchronicity, I get chills talking about synchronicities start happening. I'm like, this is going to be a good day, and I see it. Sometimes I feel myself like, oh, I'm feeling like anxious or I'm feeling like I can't pull it together right now. But then I just focus myself. I put the intention there and I do what I have to do and it becomes amazing.
Oh, absolutely. But it's intention. You said the word, it's intention. I literally believe that we have to have intention to live a purposeful life, right? And to not live a life on accident. Like how many times you talked about happiness? People will say to me, I just want to be happy, or I'll hear that from my kids. And depending on, obviously, we got to be respectful of where people's energy's at and listen to their tonality, watch their body language, be a student of human nature. And maybe you shouldn't respond, even if you have the answer, because they're not in the right headspace. Maybe they're not able to listen to what you're going to say. But depending on who I'm talking to, I might say to them, well, happiness is something you have to work on. You have to earn that. It just, nobody's going to say, okay, come up to the buffet of life. We're going to scoop on happiness and you're going to be happy now because we've given you that serving. You have to work at being happy. You really do. And happiness ties into all those 4 things you talk about, right? One of them being happiness. But if your money's good, your health's good, you're grateful, happiness is there. Like you said, check yourself out and realize how good things are, right? But
hey, you can find happiness on creating your life. Like it can be a joy, the journey of turning your finances around or turning your health around. It doesn't have to be this, struggle. Like it can be the excitement. Maybe that can be part of your joy or your purpose, it becomes exciting. It doesn't have to be so hard or so
regimented.
Yeah, like it doesn't, it's not that you're not going to have challenges, but they're challenges, you're not in a rut, you're not in a problem. Like it's a challenge, it's an opportunity to expand yourself. That should be exciting.
If you're on the climb and want to change, you got to realize there's going to be some hills and valleys, but you need to retrain your brain or have a coach mentor that's going to say to you, okay, this might be difficult. For an example, when I help people budget, they're scared. And I'll say to them, well, you shouldn't be scared because within your budget, we've put some of your goals. You want to do this, you want to do that, you want to save for this, you want to get out of debt. Can you imagine how it'll feel, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, when you get to the end of this? You go through all the struggles and trials and tribulations, you actually accomplish what we wrote on this goal sheet and implement it in your budget. So it's what we say to people and make them think on the opposite side, because our society is so attuned to being tuned to the negative side of it. Oh, this is going to be a lot of work. This is going to hurt. I don't know if I can handle this. I'd rather just stay stuck in my little rut and eat ding dongs all the time and Doritos and drink Coca-Cola, right? I'm just going to live a life like that. Life takes work. There's people out there that will help you pivot and reframe how you look at things, even the difficult, to understand that the difficult has a light on the other side.
No, that's so, I love how you reframed that. That was just so beautiful. I like that. That was a
Well,
great
thank you.
perspective.
Thank you. So, Lynn, you love empowering others to create their desired life of health, wealth, and perfect self-expression. I personally do not believe a balanced, complete balanced life is possible, that we cannot, that we can do our best to keep things in check. However, it takes constant work. And you and I have been talking about this whole conversation. What do you believe and teach that a desired life should be made up of? Like, you listed those 4 things, but what is more to that? Like, what should a desired life be? Should it be something where people are always planning on going outside? Like, should they be going to the gym constantly? Should they look at a vacation, maybe a road trip once a month? Is there specific patterns that you see that work more effectively for people to live a desired life?
I think it's when you get in tune with yourself every moment, where you're really listening to yourself and you're living what you want to live. You're doing what you want to do majority of the time. You're feeling happy more than sad. You're feeling in that joy. And it's more than happy. Like, happy can be elusive too. It's like a joy. You just feel present, and you can almost surrender to what's happening in front of you, because it's all good. That you're making the highest choice for yourself the majority of the time. I think that is the place of really perfect self-expression. It's that's what we consider, because we're energy in motion, or we'd be dead. That's what life is. We're energy in motion, or otherwise, that's why we're in this body, and it's an eternal thing. So it's being in tune with yourself. I think that's the place I live. It's how far away I'm from my little grace state. What am I feeling right now? Or if I I'm going down a negative path or criticizing something, I'm like, how did I get here? Like, I catch myself. Not that I don't have my anger moments, not that I don't have the venting moments. They're okay. I also allow myself to have those moments too, because you can't suppress all that. That's part of it. So I think it's making peace with everything you feel, and being able to make the highest choice for yourself, not because you're obligated, not because you have to do this or someone's telling you to. It's a very different place to get to. It's more of an
Yeah,
empowered state.
I like that, though. How far am I away from my gray state? And I like the fact of the distinction, because honestly, I've never really thought of the distinctional differences between joy and happiness, but there is a difference, right? So I appreciate you bringing that up, because now it's going to make me more intentional. I'm happy right now, but joy is, for me, I guess, when I think about it, joy would tie to the gray state, right?
Yeah,
Am
yeah,
I correct?
I
Right.
agree with you.
So yeah, so that's definitely something I'm going to work on now. And again, that's, why I take notes, right? So I can look back and appreciate, even though I'll listen to this podcast minimum once after the fact,
Yeah,
to
I do too. I'm listening.
understand. Yeah, and I always, even the shows I'm on, I always listen to them to make sure that I connect, because we miss things. We get excited and maybe we miss that comment, or we heard part of a comment said by the guest, or if I'm a guest on a show, maybe I missed part of their comment. I kind of heard it, but I really didn't have time, and I don't want to stop the flow and go back. So I go back and listen to it again. But that's why I take notes, and I look at the notes that I've gotten, and yeah, hurts me. And it's going to sound weird, but I feel joy from it. So I feel like I'm in a gray state already,
I
just
love
from
that.
this, right?
That's
Just
fantastic.
just from having this. So I
I feel joy
appreciate.
too. This was a very uplifting conversation for me. You have a very good energy, a high vibe. I was excited to come on your show when I started watching some of your episodes, and I thought, oh, this is going to be fun.
Oh, I appreciate you saying that. Thanks so much. So, Lynn, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
Mm. Give a heck to make yourself get happy. Find your joy.
I
That's the
like
most
that.
important in everything. It's the bottom line is get yourself feeling good, because then you're going to find your joy and your grace state.
Absolutely. And it's tough for people to give a heck because we have so many pattern teachings and behaviors starting right from our earliest recollections all the way up to where we are as adults. We've had so many outside circumstances and forces at work against us. And for me, I believe that we have to fight against it. Being God fearing, being a Christian, God is, I'll pray and say, hey, this and this and that, I've got this going on. God's not going to directly influence my life, but if I pray, he's going to bring a Lynn to me. Lynn's going to be his vessel to effectively change my life. So those listening, if you're a person that's always going like, even if you don't believe in God, you're just saying, hey, universe, give me this and blah, 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 help me out. I don't believe you can materialize stuff from just speaking it out loud. I'm not a firm. I think people took The Secret as a side note, took the book The Secret out of context. Yes, you can talk about things, but you still have to take action. You still have to do
Yeah.
things in order to invoke change within your life. So when I pray, I'm not praying, hey, I want a shiny new bicycle, or I want a brand new this or that. I'm not praying for the materialistic. I'm praying for, I've got this going on in my life, God. Please, show me the light, help guide me, help, me continue to move forward. Bring that person to me that's going to, make a difference in my life. Right. So if my finances are hurting, I'll tell people, well, I might say to somebody, well, you know, you can't directly pray for money. It's not like it's gonna sprinkle down on you and you're gonna have a money tree in your backyard. Pray for, self-healing. Pray for you to have the strength and resolve to stick to a program that we're going to put together that's going to help you get your life in check. And so many others of your life, when your money is in check, are going to come in check as well. And it's gonna hurt. It's not hard, but it's not easy either. It's going to hurt for you to change your life. And sometimes one of the best things you can do is embrace that hurt, because then you're alive. You're changing, you're climbing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my goodness.
You said something so powerful. That hurt, though, people are afraid to go into the hurt. But guess what? When you go into the hurt, you realize it doesn't kill you. That's where you find the joy comes on the other side, because you went through. And it's like, oh, that's what I had to experience. But you're holding yourself back here because you're afraid to go through the hurt. But we have to embrace the hurt and the fear. We can have the courage to go through it. You realize, oh, it wasn't so bad. And then you're free.
And that freedom, though, oh, it tastes so sweet.
Yes, it does.
Right? It does. It tastes so sweet. So our time is almost up. I want to respect our listeners and your time. However, before we end, can you please tell the listeners what is the best way they can reach out to you?
Sure. So if you go on my website, creatingmydesiredlife.com, you can sign up to either receive my emails or just to ask me a question. You can email me there and I can get back to you.
Fantastic. And as we mentioned earlier, for those new to the show, just go to giveaheck.com, hit on the podcast portal. I'll make sure all that information's within there. And if, the odd time I get people that are very worse introverted than I am. I know I may not seem introverted. I have to force myself to be extroverted. At one point in my life, I wouldn't have been able to reach out to a Lynn, but maybe I could reach out to somebody that I feel comfortable with that knows Lynn, and I can be that, that conduit. So if you are somebody that knows me or have been listening to the show, you can reach out to me and I can always do a connection with Lynn and yourself so that you can learn to live a life on purpose and not by accident, and start that journey of giving a heck about yourself, because you are worthy. Every single individual that's on this planet deserves to have purpose, but you have to be willing and you have to take that step. So thank you so much. Any final last words, Lynn, that you'd like to add?
No, it was an honor being here. I truly appreciate the conversation. I think we're raising the consciousness and raising the vibration for everybody when we do this. So thank you, Dwight.
You're welcome. Yes, we're getting to that gray state. We're going to help people get there along with us continuing on to that journey to ensure we're there more than we're not. So thanks so much for being on Give a Heck, Lynn. I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn it is never too late to give a heck.
Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.